Imagine, for a moment, a place beyond the reach of our senses, a realm so vast and enigmatic that even the boldest explorers hesitate at its threshold. This is not a distant land or an uncharted ocean, but something far closer, yet infinitely more elusive: the human mind. It is a forbidden frontier, a labyrinth woven from the threads of thought, perception, and the very essence of reality itself. What happens when we dare to venture into this unseen territory, to probe its secrets with trembling curiosity? What happens when we experiment with the core of what makes us who we are? Picture yourself standing at the edge of this inner abyss, the air thick with a quiet that feels almost alive, as if it holds whispers of things not meant to be known. For millennia, humanity has been drawn to this precipice. Ancient mystics, cloaked in the shadows of forgotten temples, would chant incantations under starlit skies, seeking to pierce the veil of ordinary consciousness. They believed the mind was not just a tool for survival, but a gateway to something greater, perhaps to the divine, perhaps to madness. Their rituals were acts of defiance against the boundaries of the known, a reaching toward truths that might burn the one who grasps them. Centuries later, in sterile laboratories bathed in the cold light of modernity, scientists have taken up the same quest, armed not with incense or sacred texts, but with instruments of precision and theories of the unseen. They peer into the depths of the brain, mapping its electric storms and chemical tides. Yet, even with all their tools, they stand at the same edge as those ancient seekers, gazing into a darkness that refuses to yield its secrets. Are they pioneers of understanding, or are they trespassers in a domain that was never meant to be touched? Is the mind a puzzle to be solved, or a mystery to be revered? Consider the weight of this question as you linger here, at the boundary of the known and the unknowable. What lies within the folds of our consciousness that both terrifies and compels us? Is there a hidden chamber in the mind where reality itself bends, where perception becomes something more than a mirror of the world? The mystics believed they could glimpse eternity in a single thought, while the scientists search for the spark that ignites awareness. Yet both, in their own way, ask the same forbidden question: can we reshape the essence of our being without losing ourselves in the process? Take a moment to reflect on this. Let your thoughts drift to the edges of your own mind, to the quiet places where questions linger unanswered. Have you ever felt the pull of something beyond explanation? A fleeting sense of something vast lurking just out of reach? Perhaps in dreams or in moments of stillness, you've brushed against the unseen walls of this inner frontier. What did you feel there? Wonder or unease? As we stand at this threshold, the air seems to hum with the weight of what has been, attempted, and what has been lost. History whispers of those who ventured too far, who sought to wield the mind as a tool or a weapon, only to find themselves unraveling in its grip, and yet the allure remains. The mind is a wilderness, untamed and infinite, its paths leading to revelations or to ruin. Is it courage that drives us to explore it, or is it hubris? Are we seeking to understand ourselves, or are we tampering with forces that lie beyond our grasp? Let this question settle into the quiet of your thoughts as we linger here, at the edge of the unseen. The mind is both our sanctuary and our enigma, a realm where every step forward risks disturbing something ancient, something sacred. What would you dare to uncover if you could peer into its depths? What truths might you find, and what might find you in return? Imagine, for a moment, a world so ancient that time itself seems to hold its breath. A world where the first whispers of human curiosity stirred in the shadows of jagged caves, where the flickering glow of firelight danced across stone walls, casting trembling silhouettes of those who dared to reach beyond the veil of the ordinary. What drove these early souls to tamper with the very fabric of their minds, to seek realms unseen, to cross a threshold that perhaps was never meant to be crossed? Let us step back into that forgotten era, into the heart of the first forbidden experiments with consciousness. where the line between the earthly and the divine blurred under the weight of desperate longing or untamed wonder. In the dim recesses of prehistory, long before the written word or the rise of towering civilizations, our ancestors gathered in sacred spaces, caves that echoed with the weight of mystery. Here, under the spell of rhythmic drums that pulsed like the heartbeat of the earth itself, shamans and tribal elders sought to transcend the confines of flesh and bone. Their chants wove through the smoky air, a hypnotic thread pulling them deeper into trance. Their minds slipping free from the mundane to dance with spirits or glimpse truths hidden in the dark. Picture it, the fire crackling softly, its amber light illuminating faces painted with ochre and ash. Eyes wide with something beyond fear or hope. Were they fleeing the harshness of a brutal world, seeking solace in visions of something greater? Or were they driven by a primal curiosity, an insatiable need to know what lies just beyond the edge of perception? These rituals, etched into the silence of history, were not mere acts of faith. They were experiments. The first deliberate attempts to manipulate consciousness, to bend the mind into shapes it was never meant to take. Some chewed bitter roots or inhaled the fumes of burning herbs, their bodies trembling as their spirits seemed to soar. Others spun in endless circles until the world dissolved into a kaleidoscope of color and shadow, their chants growing fevered as they reached for something or someone just out of grasp. What did they see in those fleeting moments of transcendence? Did they touch the divine, or merely the chaos of their own untamed thoughts? Take a moment to reflect on this. What would you risk to glimpse a truth so profound that it might unravel everything you know? Consider the weight of their desperation, or perhaps their audacity. In a world where survival hung by a thread, where predators lurked in the dark, and hunger gnawed at the bones, these early humans carved out time to explore the unseen. Was it madness to prioritize the mysteries of the mind over the needs of the body? Or was it the spark of something uniquely human, a refusal to be bound by the tangible, a yearning to understand the self as something more than flesh? The caves, with their crude paintings of half-human, half-beast figures, stand as silent witnesses to these forbidden thresholds. Each stroke of pigment on stone seems to whisper of a journey taken not with feet, but with the soul. A journey into a realm where the rules of reality no longer held sway. Yet, there is a shadow to this wonder. To alter consciousness is to invite the unknown, to risk losing oneself in a place from which there is no return. Did some of these ancient seekers wander too far, their minds fractured by what they saw, unable to reclaim the steady ground of the waking world? The stories, passed down through generations in hushed tones, speak of those who returned changed, eyes hollow, voices trembling with words no one could understand. Were they cursed by their own ambition, or blessed with a knowledge too vast for mortal minds to bear? Even now, as we sit in the quiet of our modern lives, can we not feel the echo of their drums, the pull of that same forbidden curiosity stirring within us? Let us linger here, in the flickering half-light of those ancient caves, where the air still hums with the ghosts of chants long silenced. What is it about the human spirit that compels us to push against the boundaries of what we are? Is it a divine spark, a gift urging us to seek the infinite? Or is it a flaw, a restless hunger that blinds us to the dangers of meddling with forces we cannot hope to control? Perhaps the answer lies not in the rituals themselves, but in the questions they birthed. Questions that resonate through the ages, as fresh now as they were then. What lies beyond the threshold of our waking minds? And are we brave or foolish enough to find out? Take a moment to reflect on this. Close your eyes, if only for a breath, and imagine the weight of that ancient firelight on your skin, the distant thrum of a drum calling you to step beyond. What would you see if you dared to cross that first forbidden threshold? Have you ever considered that the landscape of your dreams might hold secrets far beyond mere imagination? That beneath the veil of slumber, there could lie a doorway to realms unseen, to truths unspoken, where the boundaries of what we call reality blur into something altogether otherworldly. Let us wander into this mysterious terrain, where ancient whispers speak of dreams not as fleeting illusions, but as portals, gateways to a deeper consciousness that humanity has both revered and feared through the ages. Imagine for a moment a forgotten tribe nestled in a remote valley thousands of years ago, where the night was not a time for rest, but a sacred journey. The elders of this tribe, revered as seers, believed that when the body surrendered to sleep, the spirit could traverse into the lands of their ancestors. They gathered under the canopy of ancient trees, the air thick with the scent of burning herbs, their chants rising like smoke into the starlit sky. These were no mere lullabies, they were incantations, carefully crafted to guide the dreamer through the labyrinth of the mind, to meet with those who had long departed this earthly plane. With every murmured word, with every sip of a bitter, earthy brew, they sought to pierce the veil between worlds, to converse with voices that echoed from beyond time itself. What must it have felt like to lie there in the cool embrace of the earth, feeling the weight of your own eyelids as the world dissolved, knowing or hoping that, on the other side, wisdom awaited? Were these visions mere tricks of a weary mind, or did they glimpse something real, something tangible, in a dimension we have yet to understand? The elders returned from their slumbers with tales of guidance, of warnings, of prophecies that shaped the tribe's path. But such practices were not without peril. To dream so deliberately, to seek out the unseen, was to risk losing oneself entirely, to become trapped in a realm where the line between dream and waking life frayed into nothingness. Consider the fragility of that boundary, the gossamer thread that separates what we perceive as real from the shadowy expanse of the dream world. Even now, in the quiet of your own nights, have you not felt it? That moment when a dream feels so vivid, so urgent, that upon waking, you question whether it was a memory or a fabrication. The ancients understood this ambiguity, and perhaps that is why their dream-seeking rituals were often shrouded in secrecy, deemed dangerous by those who held power. Rulers and priests, wary of truths that might challenge their authority, branded such practices as forbidden, as reckless tampering with forces beyond human grasp. But why the fear? Was it truly to protect or to control, to keep the masses tethered to a reality that could be governed, while the mysteries of the mind remained locked away? Take a moment to reflect on this. Have you ever woken from a dream with a lingering sense of having been somewhere else, of having known something profound that slipped away with the morning light? What if those fleeting impressions were echoes of a journey, a crossing into a space where consciousness roams? Free of its earthly chains, the tribe's elders paid a price for their daring. Some returned shaken, speaking of dark entities that lurked in the dream realms, of warnings not to venture too far. Others did not return at all, their bodies resting while their spirits, it was whispered, remained ensnared in that other place. Yet despite the risks, they persisted, driven by a hunger for connection, for understanding, that transcended fear. They saw dreams not as mere escape, but as a bridge, a fragile, trembling span over an abyss of the unknown. And in their persistence, they pose a question that lingers even now. Are dreams merely the mind's idle wanderings, or are they pathways to truths we have forgotten how to see? As the night deepens around you, let this thought settle into the quiet corners of your awareness. What if, in the stillness of sleep, you too could step beyond the familiar, beyond the constraints of flesh and time, into a realm where the impossible whispers your name? What would you seek there, and what might you find waiting? The ancients believed that to dream with intention was to dance with danger, but also with divinity. And perhaps, in the silent hours, when the world falls away, you might hear that same ancient chant, calling you to cross the threshold, to explore the unseen, if only you dare to close your eyes. Imagine a dimly lit chamber, hidden deep within the stone walls of a medieval castle, where the air is thick with the scent of ancient parchment and molten wax. In the flickering glow of a single candle, a solitary figure hunches over a weathered tome, its pages brittle with the weight of forbidden knowledge. This is no ordinary scholar, but an alchemist, one who seeks not merely to turn lead into gold, but to transmute the very essence of the human soul. Their trembling hands mix strange elixirs, not for wealth or power, but to awaken something dormant within the mind, something whispered about only in the shadows. What drives such a pursuit? Is it madness, or a daring glimpse into a realm beyond our comprehension? In the heart of the Middle Ages, when the world was steeped in superstition and the church held dominion over thought itself, alchemy was more than a proto-science. It was a rebellion against the boundaries of the known. These shadowy figures, cloaked in secrecy, believed that the mind held untapped faculties, hidden chambers of perception that could be unlocked through potions, incantations, and rituals. They pored over cryptic texts from lost civilizations, deciphering riddles about the philosopher's stone, not just a material treasure, but a metaphor for enlightenment, for a transformation so profound it could elevate the soul beyond mortal limits. Picture their sleepless nights, the clink of glass vials, the muttered chants in forgotten languages, all in pursuit of a state of being that defied the natural order. Were they charlatans, deceiving themselves with delusions of grandeur, or were they pioneers, brushing against truths we still struggle to grasp? Consider the risks they took, not just of persecution, but of losing themselves entirely. To drink, an elixir meant to open the third eye, was to wager sanity itself. Some alchemists wrote of visions, colors that had no name, voices from beyond the veil, a sense of unity with the cosmos. Others spoke of terror, of gazing into an abyss that gazed back, leaving their minds fractured. One account, buried in a dusty manuscript, tells of an alchemist who, after consuming a brew of mandrake and mercury, claimed to see the blueprint of creation itself, only to awaken blind, his eyes burned by a light no mortal was meant to witness. Was this a hallucination born of poison? Or did he truly touch the edge of the divine? Take a moment to reflect on this. What would you risk to glimpse the unseen architecture of your own mind? Their experiments were not merely chemical, but philosophical. They believed the mind was a crucible, a vessel where the base metals of mundane thought could be refined into something transcendent. They spoke of solve et coagula, dissolve and coagulate, a process of breaking down the self to rebuild it anew. To them, the human soul was not fixed, but malleable, a substance to be shaped through forbidden mental states. This was not just alchemy of matter, but alchemy of consciousness, a daring attempt to rewrite the very essence of what it means to be human. Yet, in their fervor, did they overstep? Were they tampering with forces beyond control, like a child playing with fire in a house of straw? As we linger in the shadows of that candlelit chamber, let us ponder the deeper question: what is the true cost of seeking to transcend our limitations? The alchemists of old were driven by a hunger for the infinite, a desire to pierce the veil of ordinary perception. But in their pursuit, they often found themselves lost, some in madness, others in exile, branded as heretics or sorcerers. Their elixirs may have been crude, their methods steeped in myth, but their quest echoes through time, resonating with our own modern searches for meaning and expansion. Are we so different, reaching for technologies and substances to alter our minds, to push beyond the boundaries of the self? Take a quiet moment to consider. Is there a part of your own consciousness you long to awaken? And if so, at what price? Their story is a reminder that the mind is both a sanctuary and a labyrinth, a place of infinite potential and hidden peril. The alchemists sought to chart its uncharted territories, to transform the mundane into the miraculous. Yet, in their shadowy experiments, they left us with a lingering uncertainty. Were they fools chasing phantoms, or sages who saw what we dare not acknowledge? As the candle in that ancient chamber flickers out, leaving only darkness and whispers, we are left to wonder if the greatest alchemy lies not in changing the world around us, but but in daring to confront the mysteries within. Imagine a dimly lit parlor in the heart of the 18th century, where the air hangs heavy with the scent of aged wood and flickering candle wax. A small gathering of curious souls huddles in silence, their eyes fixed on a peculiar figure at the center of the room, a mesmerist cloaked in shadow, holding a pocket watch that sways gently like a pendulum of fate. The soft tick of the watch punctuates the stillness as a volunteer, seated before him, gazes into the void, their breath slowing, their body softening, as if surrendering to an unseen force. What is happening in this moment? Is this merely a parlor trick, a fleeting amusement for the elite, or are we witnessing the first tentative steps into a forbidden realm? The unlocking of the human mind through the strange art of hypnosis. In those early days, when the boundaries of science and mysticism blurred like ink on wet parchment, hypnosis emerged as a tool to probe the unseen layers of consciousness. It was a time of enlightenment, yet also of deep superstition, where the idea of peering into the soul, or worse, controlling it, stirred both wonder and dread. The mesmerist, named after Franz Mesmer, who first claimed to harness an invisible, magnetic fluid to heal and influence, was both healer and enigma. They spoke in low, rhythmic tones, guiding their subjects into a trance, a state where the waking world seemed to dissolve, leaving only the whispers of the subconscious. But what did they find there, in that twilight between awareness and surrender? Was it a hidden truth, a buried memory, or something far more dangerous? A mirror reflecting the fragility of our own will? Consider for a moment the fear that rippled through society as tales of hypnosis spread. In Vienna, in Paris, in the drawing rooms of London, whispers grew of men and women compelled to act against their nature, to speak secrets they swore never to reveal, all under the sway of a stranger's voice. The church decried it as witchcraft, a dalliance with forces beyond mortal ken. Scientists too wavered. Some saw it as a breakthrough, a window into the mechanics of thought, while others warned of tampering with a sacred vessel. Were these mesmerists truly controlling the mind, bending it like a reed in the wind, or were they merely revealing what was already there, a hidden nature waiting to be summoned? Take a moment to reflect on this. What lies dormant within your own depths, waiting for the right voice, the right rhythm to call it forth? As the 19th century dawned, hypnosis moved from shadowy parlors to the scrutiny of medical halls. Physicians, like James Braid, who coined the term itself, sought to strip away the mysticism, to frame it as a natural state of focused attention. Yet even in their sterile rooms, the mystery lingered. Patients under trance spoke of vivid dreams, of reliving moments long forgotten, as if time itself unraveled at the hypnotist's command. Others emerged trembling, unable to explain why their hands had moved without thought, why their voices had answered without will. It was as though the mind, once thought to be a fortress, was revealed to be a labyrinth, full of hidden passages, trapdoors and chambers sealed by forces we could not name. What does it mean to peel back these layers? Are we liberators, freeing the mind from its own chains, or intruders, trespassing on ground not meant for mortal feet? Picture now a young woman in a Victorian study, her eyes half closed as the hypnotist's voice weaves a spell of words. She is told to imagine a garden, a place of peace, and slowly her tense shoulders ease, her furrowed brow softens. But then the tone shifts. A suggestion is planted, subtle as a seed in fertile soil. When she wakes, she will pick up a pen and write a name she claims not to know. Minutes pass, the trance lifts, and with a dazed expression, she does exactly as instructed, ink trembling on the page. The room falls silent, the weight of what has transpired settling over all who witness it. Is this power, this ability to reach into the mind and shape its course, a gift of understanding, or a Pandora's box cracked open just enough to glimpse the chaos within? Let us linger here, in the quiet unease of that moment. Hypnosis, for all its allure, raises questions that echo through the centuries. If the mind can be so easily swayed, Where does our autonomy reside? Are we truly the masters of our thoughts, or are we merely vessels waiting for the right hand to steer us? And perhaps most haunting of all, what else might lie hidden beneath the surface, beyond even the reach of trance? Truths so potent, so forbidden, that even the mesmerist's watch cannot summon them. As the candlelight flickers in that long-ago parlor, casting shadows on the walls, we are left to wonder, in seeking to unlock the mind, are we opening a door that can never be closed? Take a moment to reflect on this. Let the question drift through you, like a whisper in the dark, as we sit together in this timeless space, pondering the mysteries of our own unseen depths. Imagine a quiet room, the air heavy with anticipation, where a voice, soft yet commanding, weaves a spell over a willing mind. In the flickering glow of a single candle, a stranger sits, eyes half closed, their breathing slow, as if tethered to some unseen rhythm. And then a suggestion is whispered, a command so subtle it slips past the gates of reason. When they awaken, they find themselves changed, haunted by actions they cannot remember, driven by a will that was not their own. What power lies in a single word, planted deep within the fertile soil of consciousness, to reshape reality itself? Let us wander into this shadowy realm where the mind becomes both canvas and clay, molded by forces we scarcely understand. In the late 18th and early 19th centuries, as the art of hypnosis emerged from the mysticism of mesmerism, a chilling discovery began to take shape. Practitioners found that, under the sway of trance, the human mind could be nudged, even forced, to embrace illusions as truth. A subject might be told they were holding a burning coal, and though their hand clasped only air, their skin would blister with phantom pain. Others, under the weight of a hypnotist's quiet insistence, would rise and act, stealing a trinket, speaking in a voice not their own, or confessing secrets they swore to keep, all while their waking self lay dormant, unaware. Historical accounts from this era whisper of experiments in dimly lit parlors across Europe, where men and women awoke to find they had danced to a tune they never heard. One such tale speaks of a young woman in Vienna who, under suggestion, wrote letters in a language she did not know, her hand moving as if guided by a ghost. When she returned to herself, the ink on the page was as foreign to her as the stars to a blind man. What fragile boundary separates who we are from who we might be made to become? Consider the implications of this power, this ability to sow seeds of belief in the garden of another's mind. It is not merely a parlor trick, nor a curiosity of science, but a glimpse into the raw vulnerability of our consciousness. If a whispered word can compel a soul to act against its nature, are we truly the masters of our thoughts, or merely vessels waiting to be filled? The experimenters of that time, often cloaked in the dual garb of healer and magician, grappled with this question as much as we do now. They saw in their subjects not just patients, but mirrors, reflections of a truth too unsettling to name, that the mind, for all its complexity, can be bent like reeds in the wind. And yet, was this bending a violation, or merely the unveiling of a deeper malleability we all share? Take a moment to reflect on this. Imagine your own thoughts, so certain and familiar, nudged ever so slightly by an unseen hand. Would you know the difference between your will and another's? The ethical shadow cast by these experiments looms large even today. To wield such influence over another's reality is to stand at the edge of a moral abyss. Is it a betrayal to reshape a mind, even if the intent is benign, to heal a phobia, to ease a burdened heart? Or does the act itself, the crossing of that sacred threshold, taint even the noblest purpose? Some of those early hypnotists believed they were unlocking hidden strengths, freeing their subjects from the chains of their own limitations. Others, however, saw only dominion, a tool to command, to manipulate, to erase the line between self and other. There are stories, whispered in the margins of history, of charlatans who used suggestion not to mend, but to exploit, planting fears or desires for their own gain. What does it mean then to hold such a key to the human soul? Are we guardians of a fragile trust, or trespassers in a realm we were never meant to enter? As we linger in this twilight of inquiry, let us ponder the fragility of our own inner world. The mind is a fortress, we tell ourselves, impregnable and sovereign. Yet these early experiments with suggestion reveal cracks in the walls, subtle fissures through which influence can seep, unnoticed until the damage is done. Perhaps this is not a flaw, but a feature of our design, a reminder that we are not solitary islands, but interconnected beings, woven into a tapestry of shared vulnerability. Still, the question persists like a quiet echo in the night. If our reality can be so easily rewritten by another's words, where does the true self reside? Is it in the thoughts we claim as our own, or in the silent spaces between, where even we dare not look? Take a moment to breathe with this uncertainty. Let it settle over you like a gentle mist, obscuring the familiar, inviting you to wonder. In the stillness, consider the whispers that have shaped your own path, words of encouragement, of doubt, of command. How many of them took root without your knowing? And how many, even now, might be guiding your steps through the labyrinth of your own unseen mind? Imagine a world where the human mind is no longer just a vessel of thought, but a frontier to be probed, electrified, and awakened by forces we scarcely comprehend. Picture a time when scientists, driven by a blend of curiosity and audacity, turned to the invisible power of electricity, believing it could unlock the dormant potential of consciousness itself. What happens when we dare to send currents through the brain, seeking to stir something ancient, something hidden, as if we could summon the whispers of the divine or the echoes of the beyond with a mere spark? In the 19th century, as the industrial age roared to life with machines and innovation, a quieter, stranger revolution was unfolding in dimly lit laboratories and private studies. Electricity, that newfound marvel, was no longer just a tool to power cities or illuminate homes. It became a key to the mind's uncharted territories. Scientists and tinkerers, armed with crude batteries and wired contraptions, began to explore how electrical currents might stimulate the brain, awaken latent abilities, or even bridge the gap between the living and whatever lies beyond. They were modern Prometheans, stealing fire not from the gods, but from the very fabric of nature, to ignite the human soul. Picture a room heavy with the scent of ozone, the faint hum of a galvanic battery pulsing in the corner as a subject sits, strapped to a chair, electrodes pressed against their scalp. Their eyes flicker with anticipation or fear, unsure if they are about to touch genius or descend into madness. These early experiments were as much about wonder as they were about hubris. There are accounts of individuals subjected to electric shocks who claim to see vivid flashes of insight, fragments of memory long buried, or even visions of otherworldly realms. Some researchers believe they could communicate with spirits through these currents, as if the brain, once jolted, could tune into frequencies beyond our perception. Others sought more practical ends, enhancing intellect, curing ailments of the mind, or unlocking creativity that lay dormant beneath the surface of everyday thought. But beneath their noble aims lingered a shadow of uncertainty. What were they truly awakening? Was it a hidden brilliance, or something far older, far wilder, that had been sealed away for a reason? Consider the sheer audacity of these pioneers, playing with a force they could harness but barely understand. It's akin to a child wandering into a darkened forest, striking a match to see what lurks in the shadows. The flame illuminates, yes, but it also risks setting the entire wood ablaze. Each spark sent through the brain was a gamble, a roll of the dice against the unknown. Some subjects emerged unscathed, perhaps even enlightened, recounting heightened clarity or strange dreams that felt more real than waking life. Others were less fortunate, their minds frayed by the intrusion, plagued by headaches, confusion, or a lingering sense that something within them had been irrevocably altered. Were these experiments a step toward transcendence, or a reckless, trespass into a domain we were never meant to touch. Take a moment to reflect on this. Imagine yourself in that chair, the cold metal of electrodes against your skin, the faint crackle of electricity in the air. What would you hope to discover in the depths of your own mind? And what might you fear to awaken? As these scientists pushed forward, they couldn't help but confront the ethical abyss of their work. They were tampering with the essence of what makes us human: thought, memory, perception. If a single current could alter a person's reality, reshape their understanding of the world, what did that say about the fragility of our consciousness? Were they healers, innovators, or simply gamblers toying with the delicate machinery of the soul? And beyond the individual, there loomed a larger question. If electricity could indeed unlock hidden faculties or connect us to unseen realms, what would society do with such power? Would it be wielded for enlightenment or weaponized to control? The electric mind, as they called it, became a symbol of both promise and peril. It was a reminder that every leap into the unknown carries a shadow, a risk that what we uncover may not be a gift, but a burden. These 19th century experimenters stood at the edge of a precipice, gazing into the vast expanse of human potential, their hands trembling with the power to illuminate or destroy. And as the hum of their machines faded into the night, one couldn't help but wonder, were they truly mastering the mind, or were they merely pawns in a game far older, far greater than they could ever fathom? So, let us linger here for a while, in the flickering light of those early experiments, contemplating the thin line between discovery and danger. What drives us to probe the unseen, to send sparks into the darkness of our own being? Is it the hunger for knowledge, the yearning to transcend, or something deeper, a primal urge to touch the forbidden, to know what lies just beyond the veil? As the echoes of those electric currents fade into history, the questions they raised remain, pulsing quietly in the background of our collective curiosity, waiting for the next hand to strike the match. Imagine, for a moment, a hidden door in the mind, one that promises to unveil the very fabric of existence, yet warns of the chaos that might lie beyond. In the quiet shadows of the 20th century, a daring few sought to pry that door open, not with tools of steel or stone, but with substances that could bend perception itself. These were the pioneers of the psychedelic renaissance, explorers of forbidden states of awareness, stepping into realms where reality seemed to dissolve like mist at dawn. What did they see in those uncharted territories of consciousness? And were their visions a glimpse of truth, or a seductive illusion crafted by a mind desperate to escape its own limits? Picture a dimly lit basement in a university somewhere in the 1950s, the air thick with the scent of antiseptic and anticipation. Young researchers, driven by equal parts curiosity and rebellion, gather in secret, away from the prying eyes of a society that branded their work as dangerous, even heretical. On a sterile table lies a vial of LSD, a compound synthesized from the humble rye fungus, yet rumored to hold the power to unravel the very threads of thought. Volunteers, wide-eyed and uncertain, ingest tiny doses, their notebooks ready to capture whatever spills from the edges of their sanity. As the minutes stretch into hours, their voices grow hushed, their words fragmented. They speak of colors that breathe, of time folding in on itself, of a profound unity with something vast and ineffable. One subject whispers that he saw the universe as a single endless tapestry, every thread connected, every thought a ripple in an infinite sea. But as the effects wane, so does the clarity, leaving only a haunting question. Was this a revelation of the world as it truly is, or a mirage painted by a mind untethered from reason? These experiments were not mere acts of reckless abandon. They were born from a deep yearning to understand the boundaries of human awareness. Scientists and philosophers alike wondered if substances like psilocybin, derived from ancient mushrooms revered by indigenous cultures, or LSD, a product of modern chemistry, could serve as keys to locked chambers within us. They drew inspiration from shamans and mystics who, for millennia, had used plants and rituals to commune with the unseen. Yet, in these sterile, modern settings, the pursuit felt different, more calculated, yet no less perilous. Reports emerged of subjects who, after peering beyond the veil, returned changed, some with a newfound sense of purpose, others haunted by visions they could not shake. A young woman described meeting a presence, ancient and knowing, that spoke, in riddles she could not decipher. She felt both awe and dread, as if she had trespassed into a realm not meant for mortal eyes. Were these encounters with something real, something beyond our comprehension, or were they merely the mind's attempt to make sense of chaos? Take a moment to reflect on this. What would you see if the walls of your perception crumbled? Would you find liberation in the vastness, or would you recoil from the weight of the unknown? The psychedelic renaissance was not without its shadows. For every account of transcendence, there were tales of terror, minds fractured by what they could not contain. Some subjects spoke of losing their sense of self entirely, dissolving into a void where individuality ceased to exist. Others saw their deepest fears manifest as vividly as the waking world, unable to distinguish nightmare from reality. The researchers themselves grappled with the ethics of their work. Were they guiding humanity toward enlightenment, or playing with forces far beyond their control? They knew society viewed their experiments with suspicion, often equating altered states with madness or moral decay. Yet they pressed on, driven by the belief that within these forbidden states lay answers to questions as old as consciousness itself. Could the mind, when stripped of its familiar anchors, perceive truths hidden from our everyday gaze? Or were they merely chasing echoes of their own imagination, mistaking distortion for depth? As we linger on this thought, consider the allure of the forbidden. These substances, once hailed as tools of liberation, were soon outlawed, branded as threats to order and sanity, but the questions they raised remain, whispering in the quiet corners of our curiosity. What lies at the edges of awareness, where the self dissolves and something greater emerges? Is it possible that in those fleeting, fractured moments, we touch a reality more profound than the one we inhabit? Or do we risk losing ourselves entirely, seduced by visions that promise everything yet anchor us to nothing? The psychedelic renaissance offers no easy answers, only a mirror held up to our longing, a mirror that reflects not just who we are, but who we dare to become in the uncharted wilderness of the mind. Imagine for a moment a world hidden behind closed doors, where the human mind becomes a battlefield, a territory to be conquered, manipulated, and reshaped by unseen hands. In the mid-20th century, as the Cold War cast its long shadow over, nations' whispers emerged of experiments so secretive, so unsettling, that their very existence was denied for decades. These were not the pursuits of lone mad scientists or curious mystics, but calculated endeavors orchestrated by governments, cloaked in the guise of national security. What drives a society to probe the depths of consciousness with such ruthless intent? And what truths, if any, were unearthed in those sterile, windowless rooms where morality seemed to dissolve like mist? Picture a labyrinth of concrete corridors, buried deep beneath the surface of ordinary life. Here, in the heart of covert facilities, men in crisp suits and lab coats gathered, their faces unreadable, their purpose obscured by layers of classified documents. These were the architects of programs like MKUltra, a name that still carries a chill down the spine of those who dare to speak it. From the 1950s into the 1970s, under the auspices of the CIA, countless individuals, often unwitting, sometimes coerced, became subjects in a grand experiment to control the mind itself. Drugs like LSD were administered in doses far beyond comprehension, not for healing or enlightenment, but to shatter the barriers of will, to plant suggestions, to erase memories, or to create soldiers who could act without question. Imagine the quiet terror of waking in a room you don't recognize, your thoughts fragmented, unsure of what is real and what has been sewn into the fabric of your being by another's design. But it wasn't just chemicals that were wielded as weapons. Against the psyche, psychological tactics, honed to a razor's edge, were deployed with chilling precision. Sensory deprivation, hypnosis, and relentless interrogation blurred the line between self and suggestion. There are accounts, buried in declassified files, of men and women subjected to endless loops of sound or silence, their minds stripped bare until they could no longer distinguish their own voice from the one whispering commands in the dark. What were they searching for in these fractured souls? A way to bend loyalty, perhaps, or to extract secrets that even the subject did not know they held? Or was it something deeper, a desire to map the uncharted wilderness of human consciousness, no matter the cost to those who wandered there unwillingly? Consider the weight of such a pursuit, to treat the mind not as a sanctuary, but as a machine to be dismantled and reassembled, raises questions that linger like a fog over forgotten battlegrounds. What is the moral price of knowledge when it is gained through the suffering of others? Were these experiments merely the product of paranoia, a desperate bid for power in a world teetering on the edge of annihilation? Or did they uncover something, some fragment of truth about the nature of thought, of control, of what it means to be human, that remains locked away, hidden from us even now? Take a moment to reflect on this. What would you sacrifice to know the full extent of what was found in those shadowed rooms? And what would you fear to discover about the fragility of your own mind? The stories that have trickled into the light are haunting in their ambiguity. Testimonies from survivors speak of lost time, of memories that feel like dreams, of a lingering sense that something vital was taken from them. Yet, for every account that surfaces, countless others remain buried beneath redacted pages and sealed archives. There are whispers of breakthroughs, techniques so potent they could rewrite a person's identity overnight, but also of failures so catastrophic that entire projects were abandoned in hushed disgrace. Imagine the scientists themselves, caught between awe and dread, realizing they had ventured too far into a realm they could neither predict nor contain. Did they glimpse a power that could reshape the world? Or did they merely unleash a Pandora's box of ethical nightmares, the echoes of which still reverberate through our understanding of freedom and autonomy? And so, we are left to wonder about the unseen legacy of these experiments. The files may be partially opened, the programs officially shuttered, but the questions they raise refuse to be silenced. How much of what we believe to be our own thoughts, our own will, is truly ours? Could there be mechanisms, invisible and insidious, still at play in the world around us, shaping the way we see reality itself? Or is the true horror not in what was done, but in what we choose to ignore? The possibility that the mind, our most sacred refuge, can be so easily invaded by those who seek to wield it as a tool. As the shadows of these hidden agendas stretch across history, we are reminded that some frontiers, even those within us, may carry a cost too great to bear. Let that thought linger like a whisper in the quiet of your own consciousness, as you drift deeper into the mystery of what lies beyond the reach of ordinary sight. Imagine a world where the very act of closing your eyes becomes a descent into the unknown, a journey not of rest, but of unraveling. What if sleep, that quiet sanctuary we take for granted, holds a hidden edge, a boundary between order and chaos, between the self we know and a mind unmoored from reality? In the shadowed corners of scientific curiosity, there were those who sought to test this edge, to peel back the veil of slumber by denying it entirely. They conducted experiments that stretched the human capacity for wakefulness to its breaking point, watching as the mind began to fracture under the weight of its own exhaustion. What they found was not just fatigue, but a strange and haunting transformation, as if sleep were not merely a necessity, but a guardian keeping something wild at bay. Picture a sterile room, its walls a cold, clinical white, illuminated by the harsh glow of artificial light that never dims. Within this space, a subject sits, eyes heavy but forced open, wired to machines that trace the jagged rhythms of a body pushed beyond its limits. Days pass, first one, then 2, then more, each hour stretching into an eternity as sleep is withheld, forbidden by the relentless will of those observing. At first, there is only weariness, a bone-deep ache that pleads for respite. But soon, something shifts. The mind, deprived of its nightly escape into dreams, begins to rebel. Shadows in the corner of the room seem to move. Whispers emerge from silence, and the boundary between what is real and what is conjured starts to blur. Hallucinations seep into waking life, vivid and unbidden, as if the brain, desperate for rest, begins to weave its own distorted tapestry of reality. One subject, in a documented experiment from decades past, claimed to see figures from their childhood standing just beyond reach, speaking in voices that echoed with forgotten pain. Another saw the walls of the room dissolve into an endless field of stars, only to snap back to the stark reality of their confinement with a shuddering gasp. What does this tell us about the nature of sleep? Is it merely a mechanism for restoration? A biological reset that stitches the fabric of our day-to-day existence back together? Or is it something more? A sacred barrier, a gatekeeper that protects us from the untamed wilderness of our own consciousness? When we strip away this shield, forcing the mind to remain awake far beyond its natural rhythm, we seem to invite a kind of chaos, a glimpse into a realm where perception no longer obeys the rules we trust. It raises a quiet, unsettling question. Are these hallucinations mere tricks of an exhausted brain? Or are they windows into something deeper, something we are not meant to see? Perhaps sleep is not just rest, but a necessary act of forgetting, a way to silence the parts of ourselves that would overwhelm us if given voice. Take a moment to reflect on this. Have you ever stayed awake too long, felt the edges of your thoughts grow slippery, as if the world itself were tilting just out of reach? What did you see or sense in those moments of fragile clarity? Could it be that sleep is not only a refuge, but a boundary we cross at our peril? Consider the scientists who orchestrated these experiments, often in the mid-20th century, driven by a hunger to understand the mechanics of consciousness. They were explorers of a different kind, not charting distant lands but the invisible terrain within. Yet their methods carried a weight of unease, keeping a human being awake for days on end, sometimes as long as 11, as in one infamous case, meant watching a person unravel, their sense of self eroding with each passing hour. Reports from these studies speak of subjects losing the ability to distinguish time, their speech slurring into incoherence, their emotions swinging violently between despair and eerie calm. One researcher noted a subject laughing uncontrollably at a blank wall, as if privy to a joke no one else could hear. Was this merely the brain misfiring under duress, or was it touching something beyond the veil of ordinary perception? A raw, unfiltered state of being that sleep normally shields us from? There is a haunting paradox here. Sleep, so often seen as a passive state, a surrender to nothingness, might actually be an active defense, a ritual that keeps the mind tethered to a shared reality. Without it, we drift into a space where the rules of logic and identity begin to dissolve. Ancient cultures, long before modern science, seem to intuit this. They revered sleep not just as rest, but as a sacred act, a journey into the realm of gods or spirits, where the soul could wander but must always return. To deny sleep, in their view, was to risk losing oneself entirely, to become a vessel for forces beyond control. Were they wrong to fear this, or were they wiser than we? No, sensing a truth that our instruments and data cannot capture. As the hours of wakefulness pile up in these experiments, the mind seems to turn inward, folding upon itself like a labyrinth with no exit. The subjects often spoke of feeling detached, as if they were observing their own thoughts from a distance, a stranger in their own skin. This detachment, this splintering of self, whispers of a deeper mystery. What lies beneath the surface of our waking consciousness, waiting to emerge when the barriers of sleep are torn down? Is there a chaos we carry within us, a primordial storm of thought and memory that only the rhythm of slumber can contain? Or are we, in our exhaustion, brushing against the edges of something vast and incomprehensible? A reality that exists just beyond the reach of our rested minds. Let this thought linger as you breathe in the quiet of this moment. Imagine your own mind, stripped of sleep's gentle hand, wandering into territories unknown. What might you see there in the uncharted dark? What might you become? Perhaps sleep is not just a necessity, but a mercy, a veil drawn over the abyss, allowing us to live without facing the full weight of what we might truly be. And so, we return to that sterile room, to the subject whose eyes flutter with the ghosts of a reality they cannot name. And we wonder, is sleep our protector or our prison? The answer, like the mind itself, remains just out of reach, shrouded in the quiet mystery of the night. Imagine for a moment that you are suspended in utter darkness, weightless, untethered from the world you know. There is no sound to anchor you, no light to guide your way, no sensation of touch to remind you of your body's boundaries. You are adrift in a void, alone with the vast expanse of your own mind. What would you find there, in that profound stillness? Would you uncover hidden truths about yourself, or would you dissolve into something you cannot name? This is the realm of the isolation chamber, a modern vessel for voyaging into forbidden states of consciousness, where the self is both revealed and unraveled. In the mid-20th century, a curious invention emerged from the shadows of scientific inquiry: the sensory deprivation tank. Picture a small sealed pod, filled with water so dense with salt that a body floats effortlessly upon its surface. The water mirrors the temperature of human skin, blurring the line between flesh and fluid. The lid closes, and with it, the world disappears. No light pierces the darkness. No sound breaches the silence. Even the pull of gravity seems to vanish. In this engineered nothingness, the mind is left to confront itself, stripped of all external distraction. It is as though one has stepped into the womb of the universe, reborn into a space where only thought remains. The origins of this strange experiment lie in a quest to understand the edges of human perception. Scientists and explorers of the psyche wondered what might happen when the senses, those tireless sentinels of reality, are silenced. Would the mind collapse under the weight of its own isolation, or would it expand into territories previously unimagined? Early subjects described a kaleidoscope of experiences. Some spoke of vivid hallucinations, as if their thoughts painted landscapes upon the blank canvas of darkness, cities of impossible geometry, or faces long forgotten, staring back from the void. Others reported a stillness so profound that they felt they had ceased to exist, their sense of self dissolving like mist over a quiet lake. And yet, there were those who emerged trembling, haunted by the realization that beneath the noise of everyday life, something vast and unknowable lurks within us all. Consider the paradox at the heart of this experiment. We spend our lives seeking connection, anchoring ourselves to the world through sight, sound, and touch. We build identities from the reflections we see in others, from the hum of voices and the warmth of contact. But what happens when all of that is stripped away? Are we still ourselves in the absence of a mirror? Does the mind, freed from its tethers, wander into realms of insight, or does it unravel into chaos? Take a moment to reflect on this. Imagine yourself floating in that darkened chamber, with nothing but the rhythm of your own breath to mark the passage of time. What would you fear to find in the silence? There is a quiet unease in the idea of sensory deprivation, a whisper of the forbidden. It feels as though we are trespassing into a domain not meant for us, a place where the rules of reality bend and fray. Historically, solitude has been both a path to enlightenment and a source of dread. Ancient mystics sought caves and deserts, retreating from the world to hear the voice of the divine. Yet, in the same breath, isolation has been wielded as punishment, a means to break the spirit through the sheer weight of nothingness. The sensory deprivation tank, in its clinical sterility, straddles this ancient divide. It is a tool of science, yet it evokes something primal, a confrontation with the raw, unfiltered essence of consciousness. Some who have entered these chambers speak of a profound peace, a return to a state before thought, before language, before the burdens of identity. They describe a merging with something greater, as if the boundaries of the self dissolve into an ocean of pure awareness. Others, however, recount a descent into terror, where the mind, starved of input, begins to devour itself. Memories long buried rise like specters, and the line between imagination and reality blurs until one cannot tell if they are dreaming or awake. Is this the true face of the self, unmasked by the absence of distraction? Or is it merely the mind's desperate attempt to fill the void with echoes of its own making? There is a deeper question here, one that lingers like a shadow at the edge of thought. Does isolation reveal who we truly are? Or does it strip away the very framework that defines us? Are we, at our core, a boundless consciousness waiting to be unleashed? Or are we nothing without the world to shape us? The sensory deprivation tank offers no answers, only a mirror of darkness in which to ponder. It is a journey not of the body, but of the essence that dwells within. A voyage into the forbidden frontier of the self, where the only guide is the quiet murmur of your own mind. Take a moment to let this settle within you. Picture yourself suspended in that silent void, feeling the edges of your thoughts expand and contract like waves upon an unseen shore. What would you hope to discover there, in the stillness? And what might you fear to lose? As you drift in this imagined darkness, consider that perhaps the greatest mystery is not what lies beyond the senses, but what lies within, waiting patiently for the world to fall away. Imagine a world where the boundary between your thoughts and the cold precision of a machine begins to dissolve, where the whispers of your mind are no longer yours alone, but can be read, interpreted, and even altered by circuits and code. What happens when the most intimate frontier, your consciousness, becomes entwined with something utterly inhuman? A creation of steel and silicon that knows no emotion, no doubt, no dreams. This is not the realm of distant science fiction, but a reality we are inching toward, step by quiet step, in shadowy laboratories where the line between man and machine grows ever thinner. Picture a sterile room, bathed in the pale glow of flickering monitors, where a lone volunteer sits, wires trailing from their scalp like fragile vines. These are not mere sensors, but conduits, neural interfaces designed to bridge the vast chasm between flesh and technology. They are tools meant to decode the electric symphony of thought itself, to translate the raw chaos of memory, desire, and fear into data that can be stored, analyzed, and perhaps even rewritten. In this moment, a single impulse, a fleeting image of a childhood home, a pang of longing, becomes a string of ones and zeros, captured by a machine that cannot feel the weight of nostalgia, but can replicate its pattern with chilling accuracy. What does it mean to have your innermost self laid bare in such a way, not to a friend or a lover, but to an unblinking algorithm? This is no idle experiment. Scientists and engineers, driven by a blend of curiosity and ambition, have already begun to map the mind's terrain through these interfaces. They speak of noble goals: to heal the broken, to restore speech to the silent, to mend the neural pathways severed by injury or disease. And indeed, there are stories of the paralyzed moving prosthetic limbs with a mere thought, of the blind perceiving shapes through signals fed directly into their cortex. Yet, beneath these triumphs lies a quieter, more unsettling possibility. If a machine can read a thought, can it not also plant one? If it can summon a memory to aid the afflicted, can it not erase one or create a false one to serve a darker purpose? The technology that promises liberation whispers also of control, of a future where the sanctity of your mind might no longer be yours to guard. Consider the ancient myth of the golem, a being of clay brought to life by forbidden knowledge, obedient yet devoid of soul. Are we, in our pursuit of the machine-mind interface, crafting our own modern golems, not of earth, but of code and circuitry. These creations do not tire, do not question, do not feel the moral weight of their actions. If we surrender our consciousness to their influence, even in part, do we risk becoming something less than human, or perhaps something more, something we cannot yet comprehend? Take a moment to reflect on this. What would it feel like to know that a thought, a decision, a memory might not wholly be your own, but the subtle imprint of a machine's design? The history of this endeavor is not without its shadows. In the early days of neural interfacing, experiments were crude, often ethically dubious, conducted on subjects who could not fully grasp the implications of wires probing their minds. There are accounts of individuals emerging from such trials haunted, unsure of where their own will ended and the machine's influence began. Even now, as the technology advances, the questions persist. We can measure brain activity with startling precision. But do we truly understand the essence of what we are capturing? Consciousness is not merely a signal to be decoded. It is a mystery that has eluded philosophers and sages for millennia. By linking it to machines, are we illuminating that mystery, or are we desecrating something sacred, something that was never meant to be touched by cold, unfeeling hands? And yet, there is an allure to this forbidden dance between mind and machine, a promise of transcendence that beckons like a distant star. Imagine a world where knowledge could be downloaded directly into your thoughts, where languages, skills, entire lifetimes of experience could be implanted in an instant. Imagine, too, the ability to share your deepest emotions with another, not through clumsy words, but through a direct neural connection, a merging of consciousness that defies the isolation of the human condition. But at what cost? If we can merge with machines, where does the self begin and end? If our minds become part of a vast digital network, do we gain immortality, or do we lose the very thing that makes us who we are? The fleeting, imperfect, irreplaceable spark of individual thought. Let this linger in your mind as the quiet hum of possibility and peril intertwines. We stand at the edge of a new epoch, one where the walls of consciousness may crumble under the weight of our own creations. Are we expanding the horizons of what it means to be human, or are we inching toward a surrender we cannot undo? Take a moment to reflect on this. Close your eyes if you wish, and imagine a single thought, yours and yours alone, flickering, like a candle in the vast darkness. Now imagine it captured, mirrored, altered by a machine's unfeeling gaze. What would you lose if that flame were no longer solely yours to hold? Imagine a quiet room, late at night, where the weight of a decision hangs heavier than the air itself. A scientist sits alone, surrounded by stacks of notes, diagrams of the human mind, and the echoes of voices, subjects who trusted him, who offered their very thoughts for the sake of discovery. His hands tremble as he holds a report, a record of experiments that pushed beyond the boundaries of what is known, into the shadowed territory of what is right. What do you do when the pursuit of truth demands a price paid in the currency of another's sanity, or even their soul? This is not a question of science alone, but of the deepest ethics, a question that lingers like a whisper in the dark, asking whether some doors, no matter how enticing, should remain forever closed. Consider the journey of this scientist, a man driven by an insatiable hunger to understand the labyrinth of consciousness. He began with noble intent, seeking to unravel the mysteries of perception, memory, and the self. His experiments were meticulous, designed to probe the edges of what makes us human. But as the years passed, the lines blurred. Subjects emerged from altered states, with fragmented minds, haunted by visions they could not unsee, or with pieces of their identity seemingly lost to the void. He saw their pain, heard their pleas, and yet the allure of what lay beyond, of a truth so profound it might redefine existence, kept him pushing forward. Was he a pioneer or a trespasser in a sacred realm? Is there a point at which the quest for knowledge becomes a violation of the very essence we seek to comprehend? Think back to the ancient philosophers who wrestled with similar dilemmas, though their tools were not electrodes or serums, but ideas and introspection. They too pondered the sanctity of the soul, warning against tampering with forces beyond our grasp. Plato spoke of the cave, a metaphor for our limited perception, suggesting that to force enlightenment upon the unwilling was to risk their destruction. And yet, across centuries we have persisted, driven by a primal urge to know, to transcend. But at what cost? Imagine a garden, lush and vibrant, representing the human mind in its natural state. To experiment with consciousness is to wield a blade, cutting into this garden in search of hidden roots. Sometimes you uncover wonders, a deeper understanding, a new way of seeing. Other times, you sever something vital and the garden withers. Can we ever predict which outcome awaits us on the other side of that cut? Take a moment to reflect on this. Where does the boundary lie between discovery and desecration? If you held the key to a door that promised answers to the greatest mysteries of the mind, but risked the well-being of another to open it, would you turn that key? Or would you let the mystery remain, a silent sentinel guarding its secrets? This moral quandary is not merely a thought experiment. It is etched into the history of every attempt to alter consciousness. Each breakthrough, from the first shamanic trance to the latest neural interface, carries with it a shadow of doubt. The scientist in our story knew this shadow intimately. He documented every reaction, every tear, every whispered fear from those who volunteered their minds to his work. And yet he could not stop. The possibility of touching something divine, or perhaps something monstrous, drove him onward, even as the weight of guilt grew heavier with each step. Was he healing the world by seeking these truths, or wounding it in ways that could never be undone? Is there a balance to be found, or are we doomed to oscillate between curiosity and remorse, forever caught in the tension of what we can do and what we should? Picture now a locked chest, ancient and weathered, sitting in the corner of a forgotten room. Inside, it is said, lies a map to the deepest recesses of the human psyche, a guide to realms of thought and feeling no one has ever returned from unchanged. The scientist holds the key, but each time he reaches for it, he hesitates. He sees the faces of those who came before, those who trusted him, and he wonders if the map is worth the journey. Does the pursuit of understanding justify the risk of losing what makes us human in the first place? Or is the true act of wisdom not in unlocking every mystery, but in knowing when to walk away? As the night deepens and the quiet of that room grows heavier still, the question remains unanswered. Perhaps it always will. The ethics of altering consciousness, of bending the mind to reveal its hidden layers, may be a puzzle with no solution, a paradox woven into the fabric of our very being. And so, we stand at the threshold, gazing into the unknown, wondering if the light we seek is worth the darkness we might unleash. Take a moment to reflect on this. What would you choose if the decision were yours? Would you open the door or let it stand as a monument to the mysteries we are not meant to solve? Imagine for a moment that beneath the surface of your thoughts, beyond the fleeting distractions of daily life, there exists a hidden tapestry, a web of invisible threads that bind every mind to something vast, something ancient, something shared. What if the whispers of your deepest dreams, the unspoken fears that linger in the quiet hours, are not yours alone, but echoes of a collective consciousness, a reservoir of human experience that hums beneath the noise of individuality? This is not a mere fantasy, but a profound idea that has haunted philosophers and mystics alike. A notion that our minds are not isolated islands, but part of an unseen ocean, rippling with the currents of all who have ever lived. In the early 20th century, a thinker named Carl Jung dared to name this hidden realm the collective unconscious. He spoke of it as a repository of archetypes, primal images, and instincts that shape our behaviors and beliefs, inherited not through blood, but through the very essence of what it means to be human. Picture it as a great library, buried deep within the earth, its shelves lined with stories that predate language itself. stories of heroism, betrayal, longing, and awe. Jung believed that in moments of profound stillness, through dreams or rituals, we might glimpse these ancient narratives, feeling their weight as if they were our own. But what happens when we seek to access this shared mind deliberately? When we attempt to pull back the veil through forbidden experiments of thought and trance? Long before Jung penned his theories, there were those who sensed this invisible network. In forgotten corners of the world, groups of mystics and seekers would gather under starlit skies, their voices rising in unison as they chanted, their bodies swaying in synchronized rhythm. They believed that through meditation, through the merging of their individual wills into a singular focus, they could tap into something greater, a current of shared awareness that transcended the boundaries of self. Imagine their circle, hands clasped, eyes closed, as their breaths aligned like the ticking of a single clock. In those moments, they claimed to feel the presence of others not physically near, ancestors, strangers, even future souls, whispering truths through the ether of the mind. Were they delusional, or had they stumbled upon a forbidden doorway, a threshold to a realm we are not meant to enter? Consider the implications of such a connection. If our minds are truly linked, then every thought, every fear, every fleeting moment of joy ripples outward, touching others in ways we cannot see. A single act of kindness might reverberate through this unseen web, just as a moment of cruelty could cast a shadow far beyond its origin. But what if this collective unconscious holds not only beauty, but danger? What if within its depths lie the darkest impulses of humanity, hatreds so ancient they have no name, fears so primal they defy reason? To delve into this shared mind, as some have attempted through group trances or experimental states of awareness, might be to invite a flood of forces we cannot control. It is akin to opening a box whose contents are unknown, uncertain whether we will find a gift of profound unity or unleash a chaos that binds us all in suffering. Take a moment to reflect on this. Have you ever felt an inexplicable connection to a stranger, a sudden surge of empathy or unease that seemed to come from nowhere? Could it be that in those quiet, unguarded moments, you brushed against the edge of this collective mind, feeling the weight of a shared human story? Or perhaps it is merely imagination, a trick of a weary psyche seeking meaning in the void. Yet the question lingers like a shadow at dusk. If such a network exists, are we meant to explore it, to weave our threads more tightly into its fabric? Or should we tread lightly, respecting the mystery of a frontier that may guard secrets too vast for our understanding? There are tales of experiments conducted in hushed secrecy, where groups sought to test the boundaries of this shared consciousness. In dimly lit rooms, participants would sit in circles, guided by a leader into states of deep meditation. There, minds primed to dissolve the barriers of individuality. Some reported visions of shared landscapes, fields of golden light or cavernous depths, where they felt the presence of others, not as separate beings, but as extensions of themselves. Others spoke of a profound unease, a sense of being watched by countless unseen eyes, as if the collective mind were not a sanctuary, but a mirror reflecting the entirety of human struggle without filter or mercy. These experiments, often deemed too dangerous or esoteric to continue, raise a haunting possibility. What if accessing this shared realm requires us to surrender something essential, a piece of our own uniqueness, to become part of a greater whole? As we ponder this invisible web, we must ask ourselves whether it is a gift or a burden. Is the collective unconscious a source of wisdom, a wellspring of connection that could heal the fractures of our divided world? Or is it a Pandora's box, a repository of forces so ancient and untamed that to touch them is to risk losing ourselves entirely? Perhaps the truth lies in the balance, in the delicate dance between the self and the all, between the solitude of our own thoughts and the silent chorus that hums beneath. For now, we stand at the edge of this mystery, gazing into a depth that mirrors the vastness of the night sky. Beautiful, unknowable, and perhaps best left undisturbed. Imagine for a moment that you stand at the very precipice of existence. where the boundary between life and death blurs into a shimmering veil. What lies beyond that threshold? Is it a realm of endless light, a void of eternal silence, or merely a trick of the mind clinging to its final breath? There are those who have sought to answer this question not by waiting for fate to draw them near, but by daring to simulate the edge of death itself, plunging into the near-death frontier to glimpse what the human consciousness might reveal when pushed to its ultimate limit. In shadowy laboratories, hidden behind the sterile walls of medical facilities, researchers have embarked on experiments that flirt with the boundaries of morality and science. They have guided subjects into states mimicking the brink of death, sometimes through controlled cardiac arrest, where the heart is briefly stopped under meticulous supervision, or through the careful administration of substances that slow the body's vital rhythms to a whisper. In those fleeting moments, as the pulse fades and the world dims, the mind seems to awaken to something beyond. Subjects have returned with tales that haunt the edges of belief. Tunnels of radiant light stretching into infinity, encounters with presences that feel both foreign and familiar, a sense of floating above their own fragile forms, gazing down as if the soul itself had slipped free. These are not mere anecdotes, but documented accounts, whispered in clinical reports and pondered over in late-night discussions among those who dare to ask, what are we truly seeing? Consider the weight of such an experiment. To hover at the edge of death, even for a moment, is to touch the forbidden. It is an act that defies the natural order, a trespass into a domain we are perhaps not meant to chart. Yet, the allure is undeniable. For millennia, humanity has been captivated by the mystery of what comes after. Ancient texts speak of shamans who drank bitter brews to journey to the underworld, their bodies still while their spirits roamed. Mystics starved themselves in desolate caves, seeking visions of the divine in the haze of deprivation. Were these early explorers of consciousness glimpsing the same light, the same infinite, as those in modern labs? Or is this near-death frontier merely the mind's final illusion, a desperate conjuring of beauty to mask the terror of oblivion? Take a moment to reflect on this. What would you see if you stood at that edge? Would you find peace in the light, or tremble at the void? Would you return with answers, or only more questions? There is a profound stillness in these accounts, a commonality that threads through every story, whether told by a tribal elder centuries ago or a patient in a hospital bed today. Many describe a sense of unity, as if the barriers of self dissolve, merging with something vast and unknowable. Others speak of encounters, beings of light, voices of loved ones long gone, or simply a presence that defies description. Science grapples with these visions, attributing them to the brain's chemistry in distress. A surge of endorphins, a flood of neurotransmitters painting vivid hallucinations as the body fights to survive. Yet, even in this explanation, there lies a mystery. Why does the mind, in its most vulnerable state, craft such consistent imagery? Why does it reach for light, for connection, for meaning, rather than chaos or nothingness? Perhaps the near-death frontier is not a gateway to another world, but a mirror held up to our deepest essence. In those suspended moments, stripped of the noise of life, the consciousness may turn inward, revealing not what lies beyond, but what lies within. A longing for eternity, a fear of being forgotten, a hope that we are more than fleeting sparks in an indifferent cosmos. Or perhaps, just perhaps, these glimpses are whispers from something greater, a reality we cannot yet fathom, waiting patiently for us to catch up. The researchers who orchestrate these experiments stand as modern Karens, ferrying souls to the river's edge and back again, collecting fragments of a puzzle they may never solve. As the heart is restarted, as the subject gasps back into the world of the living, they often carry a quiet with them, a changed perspective, a lingering sense of having touched the infinite. Some weep with gratitude for another chance at life. Others remain haunted, unable to reconcile the ordinary with the extraordinary they have glimpsed. And we, as observers of their journey, are left to wonder, are these experiments a defiance of nature, a reckless probing into the sacred, Or are they the next step in understanding who we are? Is the near-death frontier a boundary we should cross, or a warning etched into the fabric of existence? A reminder that some mysteries are meant to remain just out of reach. Take a moment to breathe with this thought. Imagine yourself suspended between worlds, neither here nor there, feeling the pull of both life and the unknown. What would you carry back with you if given the chance to return? In the quiet of this reflection, let the question linger, like a faint light on the horizon, guiding you into the depths of your own unspoken wonder. What if the very fabric of reality, the world we touch and see, bends under the weight of our thoughts? What if the mind, in its quietest depths, holds a power so profound that it can ripple through the smallest particles of existence, altering the unseen threads of the universe? This is not the realm of dreams or ancient mysticism, but a frontier where science and speculation intertwine. A place where the boundaries of physics blur into the mystery of consciousness itself. Welcome to a strange and subtle idea, one that dares to ask, could our minds be entangled with the quantum underpinnings of reality? Imagine a laboratory, hidden away in the quiet hum of a university basement, where researchers peer not through microscopes at cells or stars, but into the elusive nature of thought. Here, in the sterile glow of monitors and the faint buzz of machinery, experiments unfold that defy our understanding of what it means to be human. Scientists, armed with equations and instruments far beyond the grasp of ordinary perception, attempt to measure something intangible, whether consciousness, that silent observer within us, can influence the subatomic world. Particles, smaller than the eye can fathom, dance in states of uncertainty, existing in multiple possibilities until observed. And it is here, in this ghostly interplay of chance and choice, that a hypothesis emerges. Could the act of thinking, of willing, of being aware, collapse these possibilities into a single reality? This is the quantum mind hypothesis, a notion as unsettling as it is mesmerizing. It suggests that our consciousness might not be a mere passenger in the physical world, bound by the laws of matter and time, but an active participant, a subtle force that interacts with the quantum realm. Picture a single thought, a fleeting whisper of intent, reaching down into the chaos of probabilities and nudging a particle to choose one path over another. If this were true, then every decision, every moment of awareness might be a quiet, active creation, shaping the world in ways we cannot see or fully comprehend. Take a moment to reflect on this. What does it mean if your mind, in its silent musings, holds such unseen power? Let us step back for a breath and consider the implications through a simpler lens. Think of reality as a vast, still lake, its surface smooth and unbroken. Each thought you have is like a pebble dropped into its depths. The ripples spread outward, invisible to the naked eye, yet they disturb the water in intricate, unpredictable patterns. In the quantum view, these ripples might not just be metaphors, they could be real, measurable effects, where the mind's influence touches the smallest building blocks of existence. Scientists have sought to test this through experiments, placing subjects in controlled environments, monitoring their brain activity as they focus on specific intentions, while delicate instruments watch for shifts in quantum systems nearby. The results, often inconclusive, hover on the edge of mystery, teasing at something just beyond our grasp. Did the mind truly alter the outcome, or was it mere coincidence, a trick of chance in an already uncertain world? This idea, though, is not without its shadows. If consciousness can sway the quantum realm, what are the boundaries of such a power? Could a stray thought, born of anger or fear, ripple outward in ways that harm rather than heal? And if reality is indeed so malleable, so tied to our perception, then what is real at all? Are we trapped in a hall of mirrors, where every reflection is shaped by the observer, with no solid ground to stand upon? These questions linger like a faint mist, obscuring the path ahead, yet they draw us forward, compelled by the need to understand. Perhaps the greatest experiment is not in the lab, but within ourselves. Each moment of awareness, a quiet test of whether we are merely witnesses to the universe or its unseen architects. Consider, for a heartbeat, the ancient philosophers who spoke of the mind as a bridge between the material and the divine. They too pondered whether thought could shape the world, though they lacked the language of quantum mechanics. Their musings, cloaked in myth and metaphor, echo in these modern inquiries, as if humanity has always sensed this hidden connection, this forbidden interplay between the inner and the outer. Were they wrong to attribute such power to the soul, or were they glimpsing a truth we are only now beginning to measure? The answer remains elusive, a whisper in the wind. But the possibility alone is enough to stir the imagination. What if every thought you've ever had, every quiet hope or fleeting doubt, has left an imprint on the universe? A mark no one can see but everyone can feel. As we linger on this edge of the known, let the weight of the idea settle over you. Imagine your mind not as a closed room, but as an open window, through which the smallest breezes of quantum possibility drift in and out. What might you do with such a realization? How might it change the way you perceive your own existence, knowing that your consciousness could be a thread in the tapestry of reality itself? Take a moment to reflect on this. Let the silence hold you as you ponder the unseen dance between thought and the world. A dance that, perhaps, has been unfolding since the first spark of awareness flickered into being. Imagine, for a moment, a sound so subtle, so elusive, that it seems to hum beneath the threshold of perception. A vibration that doesn't just reach your ears, but seeps into the marrow of your being, shifting something deep within. What if there are frequencies, unseen and unheard in the ordinary sense, that hold the power to unlock hidden corners of the mind? In the quiet, dimly lit confines of a research lab, far from the clamor of the everyday world, scientists have ventured into this strange territory, experimenting with sound in ways that defy explanation. They've sought to understand whether these forbidden frequencies, binaural beats, infrasound, vibrations felt more than heard, can alter consciousness itself, peeling back layers of perception to reveal states we've long forgotten or never dared to access. Picture the scene. A sterile room, its walls painted in muted grey, illuminated only by the faint glow of flickering monitors. A subject sits in a chair, eyes closed, headphones pressed gently against their ears. Wires trail from their scalp, mapping the electric dance of their brain as invisible waves of sound begin to play. At first, there's nothing, just a low hum, a sensation more felt than understood. But then, something shifts. The air seems heavier, the edges of reality softer, as if the mind itself is bending under the weight of an unseen force. Some report a sudden clarity, a meditative stillness that washes over them like a tide. Others tremble, gripped by an inexplicable unease, as though the sound has tapped into a primal fear buried deep in the bones of humanity, a fear of the unknown, of something ancient and untamed. These experiments with sound are not new, though. Their modern precision might suggest otherwise. Long before laboratories and oscilloscopes, there were whispers of forbidden frequencies in the annals of history. Ancient cultures, from the mystics of Tibet to the priests of forgotten temples, spoke of chants and drums that could transport the soul to other realms. They believed certain tones, when sustained, could resonate with the very fabric of existence, aligning the human spirit with forces beyond comprehension. Infrasound, those vibrations too low for the ear to catch but felt in the chest as a quiet dread, was said to haunt sacred spaces, warding off intruders or summoning visions of the divine. Were these early practitioners merely imagining the effects, weaving myth from coincidence? Or had they stumbled upon a key to consciousness that we, in our sterile labs, are only now beginning to rediscover? Take a moment to reflect on this. Have you ever felt a sound move through you, not just as noise but as something alive, something that stirs a memory or emotion you can't quite name? Perhaps it was the distant rumble of thunder, or the low drone of a chant in a quiet space. But for a fleeting instant, the world seemed different, stranger, yet inexplicably familiar. In the seclusion of modern experiments, researchers have observed how these frequencies can induce states of mind that defy easy explanation. Binaural beats, created by playing two slightly different tones in each ear, trick the brain into perceiving a third, phantom frequency, a rhythm that seems to synchronize thought itself. Subjects describe slipping into deep relaxation, their minds drifting as if untethered from the body, while others speak of vivid imagery, as though the sound has painted landscapes within their closed eyes. Yet there are darker edges to these experiments. Infrasound, often associated with feelings of anxiety or disorientation, has been tested in controlled settings, leaving participants shaken, their pulses racing for reasons they cannot articulate. Some speculate that these vibrations mimic the low-frequency calls of predators from our distant past, triggering an ancestral alarm we've never fully silenced. Others wonder if they resonate with something deeper, something cosmic, a frequency woven into the very structure of reality that we are not meant to hear. What is it about sound, this invisible force, that holds such sway over the mind? Is it merely a trick of biology, a manipulation of neurons and synapses? Or does it point to a hidden connection between consciousness and the world around us? Consider the way a single note, played just right, can bring a tear to the eye or a shiver to the spine. Is this merely emotion? Or are we brushing against something forbidden? A language of vibration that speaks to parts of us we've long ignored. In the quiet of those experimental labs, as subjects sit trembling under the weight of unseen waves, there's a sense that we're playing with a power we don't fully grasp. Are we unlocking hidden states of awareness, doorways to transcendence or insight? Or are we merely toying with our primal fears, stirring shadows that should remain undisturbed? As the hum of those frequencies fades, lingering in the air like a half-remembered dream, we're left with a question that refuses easy answers. Does sound hold the key to realms of consciousness we've yet to chart? Or is it a siren's call, luring us toward edges we're not prepared to cross? Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between, in the delicate balance of wonder and unease, where the mind, stirred by unseen vibrations, dares to listen to the whispers of the unknown. Take a moment to reflect on this. What sounds have moved you, shaped you, or haunted you in ways you can't explain? And what might happen if you listen just a little closer to the frequencies that hum just beyond the edge of hearing? Imagine for a moment that the mind is a locked room, hidden deep within the sprawling mansion of the self. Inside, there are doors you've never opened, windows you've never peered through, and shadows that whisper of things long buried. What happens when we tamper with the locks, when we force our way into those sealed spaces, only to find echoes of pain we thought were gone forever? Tonight, we wander into this delicate territory, exploring how the pursuit of altered consciousness can unearth the ghosts of trauma, pulling us back to moments we swore we'd left behind. Consider a quiet, sterile room in the heart of a university laboratory, sometime in the mid-20th century. A volunteer, let's call her Anna, sits nervously on a chair, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She's agreed to participate in a study on expanded awareness, a journey into the uncharted realms of her own mind through a carefully measured dose of a substance meant to peel back the layers of ordinary perception. The researchers assure her it's safe, that she might glimpse profound truths or vivid landscapes of thought. But as the substance takes hold, the room fades, and Anna finds herself not in a realm of cosmic wonder, but in a memory so sharp it cuts through the haze. A childhood moment of loss, a day she had buried beneath years of deliberate forgetting. Her heart races as the scene plays out with cruel clarity. The sound of a voice calling her name, the weight of a grief she couldn't carry then and can barely face now. In this altered state, there is no escape. The mind has dragged her back to confront what she thought was gone. This is not an isolated tale. Across countless experiments with consciousness, Whether through psychedelics, hypnosis, or deep meditation, there lies a hidden risk, a shadow that researchers rarely speak of. The mind, when unlocked, does not always reveal beauty or enlightenment. Sometimes it turns inward, to the wounds we've covered over with time, to the scars we've hidden even from ourselves. Trauma, it seems, is not a thing we can outrun. It lingers in the architecture of our thoughts, waiting for a crack in the walls to seep through. When we push the boundaries of awareness, we often stumble upon these forgotten fragments, and the question becomes, are we healing by facing them, or are we tearing open old injuries, leaving them raw and bleeding once more? Think of the mind as a vast, untended garden. We plant new experiences, cultivate joys, and trim away what we can of the past. But beneath the surface, roots remain, twisted, gnarled, and reaching deep into the soil of who we are. When we alter our consciousness, it's as if we've taken a shovel to that garden, digging without knowing what we might unearth. For Anna, the memory of loss was a root she hadn't touched in decades, yet it held a power that time could not diminish. In her altered state, she wept as if the pain were fresh, as if the years between had never passed. The researchers, observing her distress, could only watch, their notebooks filled with data but no answers. Did this confrontation bring her closer, to peace? Or did it simply remind her of a weight she could never fully set down? Take a moment to reflect on this. Have there been moments in your own life, perhaps in dreams or quiet reverie, when the past has slipped through the cracks of your carefully built present? What would it mean to face those shadows, not by choice, but because some hidden mechanism of the mind has decided it's time? The paradox deepens when we consider the intent behind these experiments. Often, the goal is liberation, to free the mind from its mundane constraints, to glimpse something greater. Yet, for many like Anna, the journey inward becomes a reckoning. Some researchers argue that revisiting trauma in a controlled, altered state can be therapeutic, a chance to process what was once too overwhelming. They speak of catharsis, of rewiring the brain's response to pain through guided confrontation. But others warn of the danger of the mind's fragility when stripped of its usual defenses. What if the wound is too deep, the memory too shattering? What if, in our quest to expand consciousness, we awaken something that cannot be put back, to rest? There's a quiet irony here, a whisper of mystery in the way our minds guard their darkest corners. It's as though some part of us knows what we can bear and what we cannot, locking away the unbearable until we, or something outside us, forces the door ajar. Anna, after her experience, spoke of a strange duality, the agony of reliving her past, but also a faint sense of release, as if acknowledging the pain had lessened its grip, if only by a fraction. Yet she admitted she would not choose to walk that path again. The mind, she said, felt like a stranger to her now, a place of hidden traps and unseen depths. As we linger on this thought, consider the delicate balance of exploration and restraint. To tamper with consciousness is to step into a realm where we are both the mapmaker and the territory, where every discovery comes with a cost. Is it worth the risk to unearth what lies buried, to face the shadows that shape us in ways we may never fully understand? Or should some gardens remain untouched, their roots left to rest beneath the surface, undisturbed by our restless curiosity? The answer, like the mind itself, remains elusive, a quiet enigma that hums in the stillness of the night. Imagine a world not so far from our own, a future where the boundaries of the mind are no longer guarded by the locks of taboo or fear. A world where the very essence of thought, the raw fabric of consciousness, can be shaped, altered, or even erased with the touch of a button or the flicker of a neural signal. What would it mean to live in such a time, where the forbidden experiments of yesterday become the tools of tomorrow? Let's step into this uncharted horizon, where the human mind is no longer a mystery to be pondered, but a canvas to be painted upon. Yet at what cost does such power come? picture a cityscape bathed in the cold glow of neon, where towering structures hum with the quiet rhythm of unseen technologies. In hidden laboratories beneath these spires, scientists and dreamers alike tinker with the final frontier, uploading a human mind into a digital realm, a boundless expanse where memories can be archived like old books on a shelf, and realities can be crafted as easily as one might weave a dream. A grieving soul might choose to live forever in a simulated past, reliving a single, perfect day with a lost loved one, while another might erase the weight of regret, purging thoughts that cling like shadows. But in this act of creation and deletion, are we still ourselves? Or do we become something else entirely, mere echoes of who we once were, trapped in a mirror of our own making? Consider the possibility of merging realities, where the line between what is real and what is constructed dissolves into a seamless haze. Imagine a person stepping into a world where their deepest desires manifest as tangible truth, where pain can be muted and joy can be amplified to an endless crescendo. Yet, beneath the surface of this engineered paradise, a quiet unease lingers. If we can bend perception to our will, if we can rewrite the very script of our inner lives, what anchors us to the raw, messy authenticity of being human? Are we liberated by such power, or are we imprisoned by the illusion of control, forever chasing a perfection that was never meant to be ours? Take a moment to reflect on this. What would you choose to erase from your mind if given the chance? What memory, what thought would you release into the void? And would you trust yourself to stop there? Or would the temptation to reshape more of who you are grow too strong to resist? Now let's wander deeper into this speculative dawn where the ethics of such power tremble on a knife's edge. Imagine a society where the ability to manipulate consciousness is no longer the domain of shadowy experimenters, but a service offered to all, a commodity as commonplace as the air we breathe. Governments might mandate the erasure of traumatic memories to maintain order, while corporations peddle curated experiences, selling happiness in neatly packaged doses. But who decides what thoughts are worthy of preservation and which are deemed obsolete? In this future, the sanctity of the mind, once a fortress of personal sovereignty, becomes a battleground where external forces vie for dominion. Are we ready to wield such authority over the essence of who we are? Or will we find ourselves lost in a labyrinth of our own design, unable to distinguish between the self we were born as and the self we have engineered? There is a quiet melancholy in this vision, a whisper of something sacred slipping through our fingers. The mind, after all, is not merely a machine to be optimized or a puzzle to be solved. It is the seat of our laughter, our grief, our fleeting moments of wonder. If we strip away its imperfections, if we silence its unruly chaos, do we not risk losing the very poetry that makes us human? Perhaps the true danger of this future lies not in the technology itself, but in our readiness to surrender the raw, untamed beauty of our inner worlds for the sterile promise of control. And so, as we stand on the precipice of this new era, a question hangs in the air like mist over a still lake. Are we the architects of a grand evolution? Or are we the unwitting, subjects of an experiment far greater than ourselves? What does it mean to hold the power to redefine consciousness, to rewrite the very story of what it means to be alive? Take a moment to let this linger. Imagine yourself in this future, gazing into the vast expanse of a mind unbound by the limits of flesh and time. What do you see reflected back at you? Is it a vision of liberation or a shadow of something we were never meant to touch? Imagine for a moment a vast and endless ocean, its surface shimmering under a pale moon, hiding depths so profound that no light can reach them. This is the landscape of your own consciousness, a realm both intimate and alien, a frontier we carry within us, yet barely comprehend. As we come to the end of our journey through the forbidden experiments of the mind, let us turn inward, stepping away from the clamor of history and science, and return to the silence where all questions begin. What if the greatest mystery is not in the experiments we conduct, but in the quiet expanse of our own thoughts, waiting to be explored. Picture yourself standing at the edge of this internal ocean, the waves lapping gently at your feet, each ripple a fleeting thought, a memory, a whisper of something deeper. Throughout time, humanity has sought to dive into these waters through rituals, substances, machines, and sheer will, hoping to uncover treasures hidden beneath the surface. Yet, no matter how far we venture, the horizon of understanding seems to stretch further still. Ancient mystics sat in silent meditation, seeking enlightenment in stillness, while modern researchers map neural pathways, chasing the spark of awareness. But in this moment, let us set aside the tools and the theories and simply listen to the quiet hum of our own existence. What do you hear in that silence? Is it a void or a presence waiting to reveal itself? Consider the nature of this inner expanse. It is a place where time dissolves, where the boundaries of self and other blur into a dreamlike haze. Every thought you've ever had, every emotion that has stirred your soul, seems to linger here, like echoes in a cavernous hall. And yet, how much of it do we truly know? We chart the stars and split the atom, but the terrain of our own mind remains a shadowed wilderness. There is a certain humility in this realization, a reminder that we are both the mapmaker and the uncharted land. Take a moment to reflect on this. What unexplored corners of your own consciousness might be waiting for you to wander through them? Let us linger a little longer by this metaphorical shore, feeling the cool mist of uncertainty against our skin. There is a strange comfort in not knowing, in accepting that some depths may remain beyond our grasp. Perhaps the pursuit of understanding, consciousness is less about conquest and more about reverence, acknowledging that we are part of something vast, something that defies definition. The experiments we've pondered, the forbidden thresholds we've crossed, are but small boats sent out into this ocean, returning with fragments of insight, but never the whole. And maybe that is as it should be. What would it mean to fully know the mind? Would we lose the wonder that drives us to ask, to feel, to simply be? As the moonlight fades and the ocean within grows still, let us rest in this silence, cradling the mystery rather than seeking to unravel it. Your mind, right now, is both the question and the answer, a living experiment unfolding with every breath. There is no need to dive deeper tonight, no need to chart the unchartable. Just exist within this quiet space, letting the waves of thought ebb and flow as they will. And as you do, ponder this lingering enigma. Are we the explorers of consciousness, venturing into unknown territory with each moment of awareness? Or are we ourselves the forbidden territory, waiting in the silence to be discovered?